Your word, O Lord, is a lamp to our feet.
A light to our path.
A reading from Luke chapter 12. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich towards God." Lord, may your word live in us and bear much fruit to your glory.
So what are treasures in heaven? I wanted to show you one of my treasures that maybe my kids might keep. Right, it's a cardboard box containing a steam engine. And so when my grandfather died in 1983, that was last century, my mother gave me $500 to buy something to remember my grandfather by. So I chose to buy a steam engine because he had one of these and we used to play with it. But when he died, his son got the steam engine. And my grandfather there were times where he worked with steam engines. So there was a significance with the steam engine. But also he made a model one and put it in his veggie garden, which faced onto the main street in where we were living. And steam engines were a very important symbol for him. So the steam engine became an important symbol for me, reminding me of my grandfather and of the times that we had spent together, and became something that I treasure. And every now and again we pull it out and fire it up and run it around the kitchen floor, and the grandkids really enjoy that as well. So they might even buy one later on to remember their grandfather who had a toy steam engine to remind him of his grandfather that used to drive real steam engines. It's a treasure. One of those things that we keep. I'm sure you've got a number of treasures, things that are important to you, things that are meaningful, things that connect with our story of life. And see, that's the difference, isn't it? That we've got possessions that really, I've seen, I was saying on the ring road, go on the ring road a lot more now to see Mum at Werribee. And it's amazing how many cars, just every now and again, I reckon there's 2 or 3 every time I go down the ring road that go, well, I'm doing 100. and often they're flashy, they make a lot of noise, and they accelerate very fast. See, some possessions, just the sense of meaning's not there as far as long term, is it? But the things that we value, that are part of our story, that enrich our lives and help us to share the story of our lives, they are on a different level to those sort of possessions. And Jesus is not saying that treasuring something is not important. But if that's the only place that our treasures are, then that's a concern. He talks about storing up treasures in heaven rather than on earth. So what would be treasures in heaven? What's Jesus meaning by those words? Treasures in heaven. I would think, with my experience with my grandfather, it's much more about the being together, the things, the relationship things, the things we did together, the things that I learnt from him that were an important part of what I remember of my grandfather. And I think that's true of what the painting is saying. If we're by ourselves and we've really got to just look after ourselves and all else, and that doesn't create treasures that are about love and connection, kindness, and the sort of things that embody the kingdom, the way that Jesus related to people, the way that Jesus encourages us to live. So building up treasures that are about things of our heart, things of generosity, things that bring people closer together, things that bring people closer to God. They're the treasures that last. And when we talk with someone who is getting close to the end of their life, the things that are important to them is the family that are gathered around, the shared experiences and those things that have enriched people's lives. Much more important than any possession that we might be leaving behind. These are things that we know and get reaffirmed when we, in our life journey, particularly in those times where we reflect on what's important and what is the inheritance that we're leaving. But how do we respond to other people that we see around that maybe have not got the treasures in heaven that Jesus talks about? They've got stuck. Their sense of purpose and meaning is not based on relationships but on other things. How do we respond? What's the message that we bring to them? How do we engage with them? I want to share with you something that I came across this week, and it's called Third Space. Third space. Home is first space, work second. Third space is a place where we gather to develop a relationship with people, where we relax. It's where we connect, it's where we reflect on life. Third space is a movement of encouraging people to think more deeply about connecting together and what's important in relationship and how we might explore what's important in life, which is really what Jesus is saying in the parable, isn't it? To these people that are asking an inheritance question. What's really important in life? How do we encourage the exploration of things that are important? And I found this Christian group who are encouraging people to develop third spaces, whether it be in a cafe, whether it be wherever it is in a park. It's somewhere where you gather together, develop relationship connection, talk about things that are of deeper things of life. Because it used to be that we had those conversations with family and friends, but nowadays, I don't know. The research would suggest that we don't have as many close relationships where we talk about things like that. And there are things like social media sometimes that can take us away from that personal interaction and that connection. So how do we respond to people in need? And within the website there is some sections they call God in 60 Seconds. And what it is a 60-second audio track of thinking about what does God mean in the context, and this one is, who am I? Very good conversation starter to reflect on what it's saying about who am I and what's my connection with God. I reckon it's a way of actually getting people to reflect on the deeper meaning and purpose of their life and what God might be saying to them and the directions that God might be wanting to explore them. Because see, the parable Jesus told is one that helps us to reflect on what our treasures are. But in the same way as the man was storing up treasures and building bigger barns, I think God is wanting us to share the treasures of heaven with others. So how do we help others connect with those treasures and to be able to connect with God? And I think that's the third space. It helps us to find places where we might talk with people. On Tuesdays, there is a friendship group once a month that meet. Pat was part of that friendship group. And they met at the golf club, not because they play golf, or some of them did, but because that's the spot where they get together and talk. And the friendship and fellowship of that group is really important, as many other groups within the life of the church have been. But I think today it's how we develop those deeper connections with people that we know or people that we meet, and how we might explore things of deeper meaning and treasures that we have learnt, not to tell people about God, but to actually demonstrate what God has done in our lives and help people to explore things of deeper meaning. Third Space is a resource to actually help us to reflect on that, whether that be in a coffee shop or whether that be in one of those spaces in the building, the new building, where we've created spaces where you can just sit and talk. Because sometimes the disadvantage of talking in a cafe is, what did you say? Because it's not always easy to hear. And that's why sometimes to go to the golf club into a separate room can be an advantage to be able to talk. So places where we can invite people in. There is opportunities in the coffee shop and in the church, the building, to invite people in. But we need to be able to remember and explore those treasures so that we might be able to help others to explore their treasures. We need to find those treasures, be able to articulate our experience of God, to be able to share that with others. So how do we respond to those people that we see around us that have lost their sense of purpose, or their sense of purpose is very much creating isolation for them? How do we connect with them and help them to connect with God?